I don't usually take night jobs anymore. Not since that one time in Arizona, when I nearly hit a wild horse in the dark, and ended up sleeping in my cab with the engine off, and coyotes howling in the distance. But this particular haul was offering double the rate, and I was behind on bills, frankly. And when you're an independent hauler, you don't get the luxury of turning down good money, even when your gut tells you something's off. So I said yes, without asking too many questions, and the guy who handed me the keys looked nervous, like he hadn't slept in days. And he said, "Keep it cold. Don't open it. Don't stop." And I laughed, thinking it was some shady medical transport, or maybe something illegal. But I've seen worse, so I just nodded, signed the papers, and climbed into the cab. It was a refrigerated trailer, heavy, humming low like it had something alive inside, and I was supposed to drive it from Reno to a private facility in Utah. No stops, no detours, just straight through the night. And about an hour into the drive, somewhere near Ely, I started hearing knocking soft at first, like someone tapping from inside the trailer. And I thought maybe it was the cargo shifting, or maybe the refrigeration unit acting up. But then it got louder, more rhythmic, like someone was trying to get out. And I turned down the radio, leaned back, and just listened. And I swear it sounded like fists. Slow, deliberate, pounding against steel. I pulled over, checked the locks. Everything was sealed tight, padlocked, chained, even zip-tied in places. And I stood there in the cold, listening, and the knocking stopped. Just like that. Like whoever was inside knew I was there. And I remember standing there for a long minute, just staring at the trailer, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. And I thought about calling the cops. But I didn't. I called dispatch instead. They told me to ignore it, said the trailer was secured. I asked what was inside. They said, "You don't want to know." I should have turned around right then, but I didn't. I got back in the truck and kept driving, trying to convince myself it was just machinery, just metal shifting in the cold, just my imagination running wild. But the knocking came back. This time it was louder, more desperate, like fists pounding against steel. And I swear I could hear breathing. Not mine, not from the cab, but from behind me, inside the trailer. And I started to feel this pressure in my chest, like something was wrong, really wrong. And I kept glancing in the mirrors, half expecting to see someone crawling out of the back. And I started thinking about all the things I'd transported over the years. Medical waste, sealed crates, even a coffin once. And I wondered if this was one of those jobs where you're better off not knowing. I passed a gas station around 2:45 a.m., and I almost stopped, but I kept going, and the road got darker, emptier, like the world had shrunk down to just me and whatever was in that trailer. And I started feeling like I wasn't alone, not just in the truck, but on the road itself, like something was following me, something I couldn't see. Around 3 a.m., I finally stopped at a rest area. I know, I wasn't supposed to, but I couldn't take it anymore. The knocking had started again, louder than ever, and it sounded like someone was screaming without making a sound. And I had this horrible feeling in my gut, like if I didn't open that trailer, something worse would happen, something I wouldn't be able to live with. So I grabbed my flashlight, walked to the back, and opened the trailer. Inside were rows of body bags, maybe 20, maybe more, stacked neatly like cargo. And the cold air hit me like a wall, and I stood there frozen, staring, until one of the bags started moving. I stepped closer, heart pounding, and the bag, it unzipped itself. A man sat up, pale, eyes wide, gasping like he'd just surfaced from underwater. And he grabbed my arm and whispered, They buried me alive. And I screamed, pulled away, ran back to the cab, locked the doors, and just sat there shaking, trying to make sense of what I'd seen, trying to convince myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination, anything but real. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop again. I drove straight to the drop-off point. Didn't speak to anyone, just handed over the paperwork and waited. And when the men came out, wearing hazmat suits and masks, they didn't say a word, just took the trailer and started unloading it, like it was routine, like they'd done this 100 times before. One of them looked at me, just for a second, and said you weren't supposed to look. And I didn't reply, didn't ask questions, just got in my truck and drove away, heart still racing, hands still shaking. And I remember thinking, what kind of place needs body bags delivered in the middle of the night? I quit that job the next day, didn't even pick up my last check, just packed up and left. But here's the thing, sometimes, when I'm out on the highway and I pass a refrigerated trailer, I swear I hear knocking, and I wonder if someone inside is still trying to get out. And I wonder if next time they'll find a way, and if they do, I hope it's not me behind the wheel. I've been driving trucks for most of my adult life, 25 years behind the wheel, hauling everything from livestock to lumber across the Midwest. And if there's one thing I've learned out here, it's that the road teaches you things you don't learn from books or dispatchers or training videos. Things like when to push through fatigue, when to pull over, and when something just doesn't feel right. But what happened to me on Route 67, one foggy October night, that's something I still can't explain. And believe me, I've tried. It was late, around 2:30 in the morning, and I was driving southbound just outside Poplar Bluff. The fog was so thick it felt like I was driving through a cloud. Couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead. And the road was dead quiet. No cars, no lights. Just me and the hum of the engine, and the occasional crackle of static on the CB. I remember feeling this strange unease. Not fear exactly, just this heavy sense that something was off. Like the air itself was watching me. And I kept checking my mirrors, expecting to see headlights behind me. But there was nothing, just fog and an empty road. Then I saw him. A man standing in the ditch on the right side of the road, waving slowly, like he was trying to get my attention but didn't have the strength. He looked soaked, like he'd been out there for hours, maybe days. He was wearing a hospital gown that clung to his body, like wet paper. His skin was pale, almost bluish, and his eyes didn't look right to me, from any angle. It was wide open, staring straight ahead, but there was no recognition in them. There was no fear, no emotion whatsoever, just this blank, hollow stare that made my stomach turn. I slowed down, rolled down the passenger window, and called out, "Hey buddy, you all right?" He didn't answer, just turned his head toward me, slowly, like it took effort. And I swear to God, the way he moved, it was like watching a puppet with broken strings. I should have kept driving, I know that now, but at that time, something about him, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made me pull over. With all those feelings, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the cold, foggy air. I asked again, "Hey bro, do you need help?" as I walked toward the ditch. But he didn't respond, just turned and walked into the woods. No urgency, no fear, just walked. I hesitated for a bit, but then eventually followed him. The woods were quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no wind, just the crunch of my boots on damp leaves. About 50 yards in, I saw it. An old ambulance, rusted, half swallowed by the forest. The back doors were hanging crooked on their hinges. Inside, It was worse than I could have imagined. There were hospital beds, restraints still attached, blood-stained sheets. There was medical equipment that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. And on the wall, scratched deep into the metal, were the words, "He never left." I felt a chill crawl up my spine, turned to leave, and that's when I saw him again. Standing just a few feet behind me now, closer than before. His mouth open, but no sound coming out. His eyes locked onto mine, darker than before. And I didn't wait. I ran toward my truck. I don't even remember how I got back to the truck. Just remember slamming the door, locking it, and flooring it down the highway like my life depended on it. I didn't stop until I hit the next town, parked at a diner, sat in the cab for 10 minutes, trying to catch my breath, then walked inside. I ordered coffee and asked if there was a local sheriff I could talk to. The guy behind the counter gave me a strange look, but pointed me down the street. I told the sheriff everything, and he listened, nodded slowly, then said something that still haunts me. There used to be a psychiatric hospital out there, shut down in the early 80s, burned down, and they say some of the patients were never accounted for. I asked if anyone had reported seeing a man in a hospital gown. He shook his head, and he said that I am the first one in years. I drove back home the next day, didn't tell my wife, didn't tell my dispatcher, just said I needed a few days off. It took me few days to step back into my truck. But here's the thing, I've driven that route a dozen times since, but I never saw him again. I don't stop anymore. I don't even look. But I know he's still there, waiting, watching, and I've got this feeling, deep down, that one day, he's going to step out of that ditch, and I won't be able to drive away. I've been driving nights for over 10 years now. There's something about the solitude, the hum of the engine, the endless stretch of blacktop, stars overhead, that makes the world feel quiet, peaceful. But peace can turn to dread really fast when you're out there alone. This happened on a stretch of I-40 through New Mexico. I was hauling refrigerated goods from Amarillo to Barstow. It was around 2 a.m., and I was somewhere between Tucumcari and Santa Rosa. Flat desert, no lights, no towns, just me and the road. I'd been on the road for about 6 hours, and fatigue was starting to creep in. The kind of tired that makes your eyes burn and your thoughts drift. I rolled down the window for some air, hoping the cold desert breeze would wake me up. It helped a little. I flipped through the CB channels, hoping to catch some chatter to keep me alert. Most were dead. Then I hit channel 19. Static. Then a voice. It was faint, like someone whispering through a broken speaker. "He's coming." I froze, thought maybe it was a prank. I leaned in, turned the volume up. "Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop." I keyed the mic. "Who is this?" No response, just static. Then, clear as day, "He's behind you." I checked my mirrors, nothing but darkness. I switched channels, dead air, all of them. I kept driving, heart pounding. Maybe someone was messing with me. Maybe I was just tired. Then I saw headlights behind me, bright, too bright. They came out of nowhere, like someone had flipped a switch. I hadn't seen a car for miles, and suddenly this thing was tailing me close, too close. I tapped the brakes. The lights didn't budge. I grabbed the mic again. "Back off, man." No answer. I slowed down. The lights stayed glued to my trailer. Then they vanished. Just blinked out. I pulled over, got out with my flashlight. Nothing behind me. No tire tracks. No engine noise. just desert silence. I climbed back in, locked the doors, and kept going. 10 minutes later, the CB crackled again. "Don't stop. He's still there." I didn't respond, just turned the CB off. But I kept seeing those lights. In my mirrors, in the reflection on the dash. Sometimes just a flicker, sometimes full beams, always gone when I looked directly. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I turned off the CB completely, shut off the radio, and focused on the road. But the feeling didn't go away. It was like something was riding with me. Not in the cab, but just outside. Just out of sight. I passed a rest stop near a place called Montoya. It was empty, just a single flickering light over the bathroom and a couple of vending machines. I pulled in, needing to breathe, needing to feel like I was somewhere real. There was one other truck parked there, but no sign of the driver. I went inside the restroom. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I splashed water on my face, looked up and froze. He was behind me, in the mirror, standing in the stall doorway. I spun around. Nothing. Empty. I didn't sleep that night, just drove straight through to Barstow, heart racing the whole way. When I got to the drop-off, the foreman looked at me and said, "You look like hell." I told him everything. He didn't laugh, just nodded slowly and said, "You saw the man on the Dead Channel." Apparently, it's a local legend among truckers, a ghost, or a hallucination, or something worse. Some say he's the spirit of a hitchhiker who died on that stretch of road. Others say he's a warning, an omen, that something bad is coming. I don't know what I believe, but I haven't used a CB since. And I never drive I-40 at night anymore.